What's going on, Grinders? Welcome to another evening of Grinders Live and another evening of some issues with Skype posting the video. So we are kicking it old school style with Google Hangout. I am here with my good pal Steve and Young. What's going on, big guy?
Not too much. Ready for a night of baseball and stacking against my favorite team tonight. So it's going to be either a really good night for fantasy or a really good night as a fan.
Is that hard for you? I have problems stacking against my Cardinals from time to time. Luckily, the Cardinals have enough good pitching to where it's not usually the most viable strategy most nights, but it's hard for me. How is it for you as a fan of the Red Sox, when one of their poorer pitchers is going to take a bunch of bats against them?
And it's always hard for you, especially as a fan. You don't want to ever root against your team, but it's just if you're going to play fantasy, you have to kind of put aside how you build teams and how you are a fan. And it's tough tonight. Like PV has just been one of those pitchers this season that has just not been able to get the job done. And it's just one of those nights where you have to, like I said, put on the side of being a fan and go ahead and stack against your team.
Yeah, I think that'll be a popular sentiment tonight with the way that PV has looked this year. Certainly his strikeout rate down quite a bit, and some of his other peripherals not looking that great. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention for a second just a quick little bit about that no-hitter that Clayton Kershaw threw last night. One of the best games that I have ever seen pitched in my time following baseball, and basically an errant Hanley Ramirez throw away from one of the most dominant perfect games in the history of the league. So don't know how much of that you saw, but it was certainly good to see him do that. He's probably the best pitcher in the game right now, and there wasn't anybody going to touch his breaking stuff last night.
Yeah, I watched a lot of that game last night. I had him in fantasy, but as a fan and as a baseball player for so long, you just love seeing guys go out and do stuff like that, and that was probably the most dominant performance that I've ever seen. I know we've seen gems, and you can say what you want to say about Hanley Ramirez's error. That doesn't take anything away from how Kershaw pitched last night, and that was probably the most dominant I've ever seen somebody just, the Rockies are not a pushover team, and to go out and no-hit a team as the Rockies and strike out 15 guys is just, it was incredible to watch. That curveball, and I said it to a friend this morning, I said that curveball looked like a video game curveball last night. It was amazing.
Yeah, probably better than I could have done on a MLB 2K game or something like that. It was just phenomenal and great for him to see him do that, and clearly you could tell how ecstatic he was after the game. So I don't know as though we've got another performance like that on tap tonight. The pitching is a little thin, to say the least, for the evening slate. We've got a shorter slate of games tonight. So you're kind of digging, especially on multi-pitcher sites, to find some hurlers tonight. So who are you looking at, and what do you make of the pitching landscape tonight?
I think it's one of those nights where we get aces upon aces for 2 to 3 days in a row, and then you just get a guy, and then you get a slate like tonight. And I think over the season, this has been my most profitable slate because you don't have people being able to just plug in like a Clayton Kershaw or a Felix Hernandez like yesterday. And you really have to do some back-end stat work today. But I know a lot of people are going to be on Scott Kazmir, and I think for cash games at 8,400 on our sponsor DraftKings, I think he is the top option for me today. I do like Jordan Zimmerman for cash games as well, but for my tournaments, I'm sticking away from those two guys. I'm going Colin McHugh and Drew Hutchinson in my tournaments tonight.
Interesting. Hutchinson's a guy I like. I like to target maybe more than most. He's got great stuff, a high strikeout rate, and the Yankees' offense has been very hit or miss this year. I like that pick, and Kazmir with his price on DraftKings, I think will probably be the highest owned guy of the night. Just to throw a couple other names out there, I do like Jordan Zimmerman, maybe more so on FanDuel, where he's kind of right there with Kazmir. On DraftKings, he's 1,800 higher. That's a pretty high price point to pay for Jordan Zimmerman, but he's got complete games his last 2 times out, and we all know that the Braves, strike out at a very high clip against right-handed pitching. So for upside, I think Zimmerman's got it tonight. Don't know if I love the price on DraftKings, but I think he's worth a look on some other sites. If you want to throw some other names in the mix to the mid range, I'm totally fine with going a little bit cheaper tonight. It will be interesting to see how many people go for this pick because I'm not really sure how many people know about him. But the Marlins have their top prospect they've called up to make his major league debut tonight. It's a left-handed pitcher by the name of Andrew Heaney. Great numbers in the minors between AA and AAA this year. I believe a 2.4 ERA. And a little bit more than a strikeout per inning. So they've moved him along slowly. I would expect him to be a guy that could perform well tonight at home against the Mets, who are terrible against left-handed pitching. Have the worst home run rate in the league against left-handed pitching. So I think Heaney could be an under-the-radar sneaky guy. It's very risky because it's his major league debut. I'd probably only use him in tournaments or on multi-pitcher sites. Because, as I said, he carries some risk with kind of being an unknown commodity. And I think Zach Wheeler could be in play tonight as well, another guy with a fairly high strikeout rate. So it'll be interesting to see where the ownership percentages fall on these guys. I think some people will be drawn to Shelby Miller as well against the hit-or-miss Phillies lineup. So what do you think of some of those other plays? Are you on Heaney at all, or are you taking a wait-and-see approach with him?
No, I'm definitely on him. I get to see this guy a little bit. I'm a Florida native, so every once in a while on Sun Sports, which is our local sports channel, they'll throw in a minor league game every once in a while. And I was flipping through one day, and he was just pitching, so I'd watched a little bit, and he does have some good stuff. And the only thing the Mets rank high in against lefties is walks, and this guy doesn't walk people.
Yeah.
I think he had 16 walks in 76 innings in the minors this season already, so I think he's definitely in play for me. I love his price on DraftKings at $6,500. I don't mind using him as an SP2 in tournaments. Don't know if I'm going to be using him too much in cash games today. I do think he has great upside potential. I just don't know what they're going to do pitch count-wise. I know he's been pitching in the minors, but you don't really see a team really stretch out a guy in his first start. So maybe 90 to 105 pitches is probably going to be his max. But with 105 pitches, he can definitely do something with that. And you mentioned Shelby Miller. I like Shelby Miller tonight. Phillies much better against righties than they are lefties. That lineup is a left-handed lineup. All their power comes from the left-handed side. So the only person that Shelby Miller is really going to have to pitch around tonight is Marlon Byrd. And Bird's been swinging the bat pretty well lately, but he doesn't scare me enough not to take him. And one guy that I'm not going to be targeting tonight, and I think it's kind of crazy because he's been really good at home this season, and that's Chris Archer. And I know Houston is bad against righties, but I like McHugh in that game a lot more than I like Archer, and I think Archer might have a tough matchup against this Houston team that's swinging the bat really well.
Yeah, Archer's a guy too that throws a ton of pitches. It's not too. I think actually it was a game against the Red Sox earlier this year where he was pitching very well. I think he had like 10 Ks in 5 innings or something, but he also had about 110 pitches. And the problem with him is he's not that great with his control, so he tends to walk some guys, and it's not uncommon for him to rack up 100 pitches in 5 innings, and it's very hard for him to get deep in the game. So I would agree against the Houston team that's been hitting the ball fairly well of late. I think it's okay to pass on him tonight. It's not like he's super, super cheap anywhere. Not really a guy that I would be targeting too much for tonight. So I think that touches on most of the pitchers. I mean, anyone that we didn't mention is probably a safe enough stay away. The game with the biggest weather concern, this is probably worth a mention. If you check out our weatherman Kevin Roth has posted in the forums his thoughts for tonight. The game in Minnesota between the White Sox and Twins looks like it's in the most danger. So just be careful if you're targeting anybody from that game. That seems to be the one with the most concern tonight. So check that out. Check out the weather radar there in Minneapolis if you're thinking about rostering anybody from that game. Not that I would probably be on Jose Quintana or the fill-in starter for the Twins tonight, but I think the game's probably okay to get in. But I would be concerned if I was thinking about one of the pitchers. So let's move to catcher. Discuss everybody at the pitcher spot. Who are you looking at behind the plate tonight?
And just a quick note real quick. I did mention that Shelby Miller is a lefty. I don't know why I mentioned that. He's a righty. And Philly's actually good against righties a little bit. And Miller actually struggles against lefties. So I had that information I just read it wrong. I have it written down right. I just read it wrong. So beware on that pick. If you want him for maybe a tournament option, use him. But for catcher position tonight, I think my top guy, and we started off the show with me saying that I'm going to be high on these Oakland guys, but John Jaso at 3,800 on sponsored DraftKings is my plug and play today for catcher.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a common theme. I think he's going to be a highly owned guy tonight. Anytime the Oakland's facing a right-handed pitcher, especially one that's struggled on the season, I think you're going to see a lot of people gravitate towards Jaso, and I think he's going to be probably the highest owned guy for sure tonight. Throw some other names out there. I know you're on Hutchison, but if you're not, I think McCann's probably one of the wiser plays from the Yankees tonight. Had a terrible start to the year, finally turned it around with a triple and a home run last night against a left-handed pitcher, which is something that he hadn't done all year long. So I like McCann. He's batting fifth. He's cheap, 3,500 on DraftKings. If you're not on Jaso, I think McCann's a fine play. And also the Cardinals' bats that are most targetable tonight are the righties. Buchanan has struggled against right-handed bats. So while most people will gravitate against a righty towards a guy like Matt Carpenter, a guy like Matt Adams, and I think they're fine plays as well, but I think Molina makes a solid play tonight, especially on sites where he's a little bit cheaper because he has been somewhat down in the first half of the year. 4,100 on DraftKings is kind of steep for him, but I think he's in play tonight, especially for tournaments. I do think Jaso's the top guy, though, in terms of production for price, kind of right there with McCann. I put Molina a step below those guys. Not really a ton that I see that I like in the cheap range tonight. It just nothing really grabs me unless you're totally punting. Nobody's cheap enough really to pull me off of anybody below or of anybody McCann or higher. I mean, if you're looking at a punt at like 2,800 or 2,900, to me, just spend the extra, $500 or so and go up to a guy in the mid threes. It's just not much grabbing me for a punt play tonight.
Yeah, I'm not really liking much of the cheap options tonight as well. The only one that I'm really looking at maybe is Stephen Vogt for Oakland. He's 2,800 on DraftKings tonight. He's batting down in the lineup, but I'm going to be on all these Oakland guys, so I'm going contrarian if I want to just punt the position to get two high-priced pitchers in, which I don't think you need to do tonight. Maybe use him. But I am with you on Molina. Buchanan has over a 400 weighted on base against righties this season, so I think all the right-handed guys for St. Louis could be a really contrarian stack because, like you said, you got guys that come in and just see righty versus lefty and just automatically assume that the guy's going to be worse against lefty. And tonight's a good night to play some of those St. Louis right-handed guys. And the only other option that you didn't mention is Carlos Ruiz. I think he's been hitting the ball really well. His price is a little high on DraftKings. It's still down across the industry. And I haven't checked the lineups to see if he's in the lineup, but he was batting second the other day. So
yeah, I believe he's batting second today.
Yeah, they've been batting their catcher second. Do you think that's interesting?
It's always strange to see Will Nieves in there batting second. I mean, it just seems like it doesn't matter who it is, they're going to bat him second. Yeah, it seems a little weird to me. I feel like I brought that up on a show with somebody probably about a month ago when they started doing it, but I guess it's working. I mean, I don't know. It does seem weird to throw the catcher there in front of Chase Utley, but I guess if it's working, they'll keep doing it. So, yeah, but in some, I do think it's a little strange.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it's bat control. They get the leadoff guy on. They think the catcher is going to have good bat control. But I don't know if I want Carlos Ruiz button. I want the guy to try to hit a home run for me. But that's here and there. I don't know. It's just interesting to see a catcher batting second.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, Carlos Ruiz, Will Nieves, they're your prototypical number two hitters if you're a Philly fan, I guess. Let's move to first base. Again, I mentioned the thing about people possibly being on the Cardinal lefties. If you're going to be on one, I do think Adams is the play at 3,900. He's been hitting the ball really well since he came off the DL. I don't think he's a must roster. I mean, some people are kind of taking him as a must roster today. I don't think he is, but I do think he's a solid option. If you want to spend up a little more, obviously Brandon Moss, I think, is a solid play on all sites tonight. On DraftKings, you can put him in an outfield if you want to preserve your first base spot for somebody else. I think Adam LaRoche could fly under the radar against Gavin Floyd. I think the Nationals bats are in a decent enough spot tonight to do some damage. So I think LaRoche is solid. Mark Teixeira could be an option if you're not on Drew Hutchison tonight. And if you want to really spend at the position, I tell you, Jose Abreu is a guy that is just tearing the cover off the ball, has 20 home runs now, pretty much matchup proof right now, and gets to face basically a career minor leaguer for the Twins, who does have very good numbers in the minors this year. Not going to dismiss that. But Jose Abreu is matchup proof at this point anyhow, and one of the most dangerous hitters in the league in just his first season. So if you want to totally spend up at the position, I don't mind him as a play at first base as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on Abreu. I'm using him more in tournaments tonight, but one guy you didn't mention that I'm really high on tonight is E Squared, Edwin Encarnacion for Toronto. I think he's in a good spot. Phelps has those reverse splits against right-handed guys, and you mentioned Brandon Moss. I do like Moss a lot tonight, but I love the fact that on DraftKings you can play him in the outfield.
Yeah.
I'm loading up on first basemen today. I got 3 first basemen in my lineups right now with Craig, Moss, and Edwin. So I love the flexibility on DraftKings. That's one of my favorite things about the site. But I do like LaRoche, and like you said, I really think he's going to fly under the radar tonight. I think if you're wanting a sleeper GPP guy, I think he's the guy to look for tonight because he's not going to be highly owned with all these top guys in good matchups, and he can put up just numbers just like any of these other guys, and not going to be as highly owned for tournaments.
Yeah, I think that's interesting tonight to see where he will fall. You know, that Nationals offense looks a lot more dangerous now that they have him back. You know, they've got Rendon and Worth in there, and then Ryan Zimmerman back to kind of round out the top half of their lineup. It just looks, even without Bryce Harper, it looks a lot better than it did, 2 months ago when LaRoche and Zimmerman were both out. So their offense as a whole unit gets kind of an upgrade right now. Gavin Floyd, a guy, he's an average MLB starter. You kind of know what you're going to get from him. So I think the Nats bats could be decent in some spots tonight. Obviously, I don't know as if I'd go stacking all of them, but I think you can pick and choose your spots with the Nationals there and get some solid plays. That's about it as far as what I like at first base. Unless you see anything else, we'll move on to second. Who you liking at second base tonight?
I just one Red Sox guy that I will be rostering a lot tonight, and I know Dean kind of stole my thunder a little bit on this one.
BVP, here we go.
That's right. He's 18 for 35 in his career with 7 extra base hits against Kazmir. His price is a little high on DraftKings tonight. I do think he is probably the safest option with some of these second basemen in tough matchups. Dozier is a good tournament option for me if the rain is going to hold off in that game. But Anthony Rendon, he's been swinging a hot bat. And another flexibility thing, you can load up on Matt Carpenter at second base if you're not really liking anybody for cash games today.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I do like those 2 guys at the top. I think this might be a rare occasion where I spend a little bit at second base tonight. Dozier, always a lefty killer, and the Twins have some good numbers in their careers against Jose Quintana. They've beaten him up a few times. So I think if you want to spend, I think Dozier's a fine option. I'd probably lean towards him for GPPs with Pedroia as a little bit of a safer play against Kazmir for cash games with his 5.14 career average in quite a large sample size of plate appearances. So those are the 2 top options kind of that I would look to for one for cash games and one for tournament games. Don't mind Carpenter if you're going a little below those top 2. And also Gordon Beckham, a guy that I think could be worth a look tonight, batting in the 2 spot. I think the White Sox could put up some runs against the Twins today. If you're totally punting, I was going to check and see if, let's see, let me check the Phillies lineup real quick. Let's see. So Cesar Hernandez is a guy that has been leading. He led off for the Phillies yesterday and had a really good game, but he's not in there tonight. They've got Reed Brignac back in there batting 8th. He's 2,100 on DraftKings, but he is third base and shortstop eligible, so not at second base. I don't think there's a ton kind of in punt land that's really exciting me tonight. If you're not on Jordan Zimmerman, Tommy La Stella is leading off again for the Braves. He's 3,400. I think he could be worthwhile as a cheap play. But I wouldn't be going too cheap at second base tonight. I think it's a position to maybe spend a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I was going to mention him as well if you're wanting to go cheap. I just don't see tonight the night to go cheap. One quick note about Dozier. I do like him. I always like him a lot more against lefties, but he is 1 for his last 14. And I don't know how much you weigh that in, but it kind of scares me a little bit. So his price, and I think he's going to be pretty highly owned tonight. I'm going to probably play the fade on him tonight, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, he's always kind of a guy. He doesn't really hit for a super high average, so he's going to go through those spells. I mean, he's got a very respectable 15 homers, 35 RBIs, but he's only batting .234. So that's kind of why I would only reserve him as a tournament guy. But the fade doesn't become, an overly big risk unless he hits a couple of homers, because he doesn't hit for a high average. So unless he goes 2 for 4 with a couple of homers, if you play the fade, you probably won't be totally burned in the water, especially if you pivot to Pedroia and he has another decent game against Casimir. So I think that's an okay play tonight. Might end up doing that myself on the tournament teams. A couple of them I do have out there tonight. So let's move to third base. Not a lot to love here tonight, in my opinion. It's pretty thin. I was kind of thinking about David Wright this morning until I read up a little bit more on Haney and his impressive minor league stats. So I don't really care to roster the Mets bats after reading that. Matt Carpenter's a guy we talked about. Some people might end up rostering him at second base. There's just not a lot at third base. Josh Donaldson, if you're going to fade any of the Oakland bats, he's probably the safest one to fade with his struggles against right-handed pitching and just struggles in general lately. And so, that leaves with not a whole lot. So what do we make of third base tonight?
Yeah, for cash games tonight, I think it's pretty simple. I'm going to be rolling out Matt Carpenter. I think he's the safest play. He has one of the highest floors in baseball, and just anytime he's facing just about anybody, I'm going to be rolling him out of my cash games. But my top play at third base tonight comes pretty cheap on DraftKings today and pretty cheap across the industry. It's Alberto Calaspo for Oakland. He's 8 for his last 11 at the plate and just absolutely smashing the ball over the last 3 days. And I've wrote this guy up the last 2 days in my article for the Star Street incentives, but this guy is smashing the ball. PV struggles against left-handed guys. I think Calaspo could be one of those guys that really puts up some points tonight.
Yeah, I just opened up his player card on DraftKings, and his OPS is 666, staring right at me. So I don't know what's going on today, but the first thing I noticed when I opened up Draft Street is that Matt Adams' price was 6,666. If you're a believer in those cursed numbers, for some reason the 666s keep popping out across the industry tonight. I don't know what that means, but Matt Adams is 6666 on DraftKings, and Alberto Calaspo's player card shows his OPS at 666 on the year. That's just a little strange. But anyway, yes, he is 8 for 11 over his last 3 games. A couple walks in there as well. So, yeah, he's been hot over the last 3 days. I think on a night where you've got to try to find some value somewhere with your bats, this might be a good spot to do it. There's not a ton of value bats out there. I mean, you can't just go in and plop in some guys that are 2K and just, roll with it tonight. And you don't have to do a ton of that with the pitching being a little bit more affordable this evening. But you still got to do it somewhere. You got to find a cheap bat or two somewhere. So I think third base with Calaspo could be a spot to do that. So otherwise, I agree with everybody. Ryan Zimmerman's the guy we didn't talk about, but I think he could be okay. Again, I like pick and choose a couple of those Washington bats in the middle of the order tonight, and I think they could do fine for you. Guys like LaRoche, Worth, Zimmerman. But I'm not going to be stacking them together. Maybe on one team, take Zimmerman, on another team, take LaRoche if you're running out multiple lineups. So let's transition over to shortstop, and who are you liking at short tonight?
Shortstop's another one of those positions. Tonight's just one of those nights where if you hit on your guys, you're really going to have a good night because there's just not many options. And, the chalk play is obviously Jose Reyes. He's, when Troy Tulowitzki and Hanley Ramirez aren't playing, Jose Reyes becomes the best shortstop available. And I do like him tonight. I also like on our sponsor DraftKings, switching Brian Dozier over to shortstop and using him as shortstop tonight because there's just not much that I'm liking. I do like your boy out in St. Louis though, Johnny Peralta. He's hit 10 home runs this season, and all 10 of them came against right-handed guys. Buchanan we've already talked about how he struggles against right-handed batters, so I like Peralta, and I'm going to be using him quite a bit tonight. But maybe Xander Bogaerts, as it's tough because he's hit lefties so good, but Kazmir has been so good against righties this season. So that's a little contrarian tournament play for me, but it's going to be Peralta, Reyes, and Dozier on DraftKings for me.
Yeah, I like Peralta, especially in GPPs with his home run upside. You mentioned all 10 of his homers are off of righties, and Buchanan struggles against right-handed batters. So this could be kind of a reverse splits thing that could pay off for you, if you choose to go that route tonight. As far as other shortstops tonight, I think you pretty much nailed most of them that are going to be fairly highly owned. I'll throw Alexi Ramirez in there as well. Again, mentioned I like the White Sox to possibly score some runs in this game. He's a guy that has some considerable upside. He can hit 2 homers in a game. He slumped a bit of late, but that's brought his price back down. He was, the 4,600 range on DraftKings for a while. He's 3,700 now, so I think that's a nice value on Alexi Ramirez. He's the same price as Peralta, but I would probably lean towards Ramirez in cash games and Peralta in GPPs. If you don't want to go up to a guy like Reyes, or you don't want to take a chance on Xander Bogaerts against Kazmir, which I think is one of the most fascinating aspects of the day, is how many people will take a chance on Xander Bogaerts, given his career success against left-handed pitching, but also the fact that Kazmir has been very, very good this season. So I don't know. I'd probably go for one of the cheaper guys. And is there anybody kind of down lower than that range that you like? Anybody cheap?
3,500 Jed Lowry, I think, makes an option, but he doesn't have a ton of upside. Not really liking maybe Espinoza at 3,000, but besides that, not really liking anybody. And just a quick note, I don't know how many Chicago White Sox I'm going to re-rostering against this rookie that they're calling up to pitch tonight. He's 9-1 with a 1.92 ERA, with a 61 to 16 walk ratio, K to walk ratio, and he's only pitched 61 innings, but his WHIP is under 1, and like I said, he has 63 strikeouts in 63 innings. So I don't know if he's available on DraftKings. I don't see him. Maybe you can.
He's not, but he's only 3K on FanDuel if you want to take the chance.
Yeah, that might be a chance you want to take. The weather kind of has me scared off of him, but I don't know how many White Sox bats I'm going to load up against this guy. He actually has pretty good stats.
Yeah, it's an interesting case. His numbers this year are very, very good, but he's kind of been a journeyman. He got released by the Reds and picked up by the Twins. I believe he's 30 years old and has been bouncing around for quite a while, so he's kind of made a splash for himself, and sometimes teams do struggle with their first time seeing a pitcher. So it's interesting. I mean, I'd maybe back off of rostering, 4 or 5 White Sox. I think you're still okay to take a couple if you take especially a guy like Abreu and Ramirez, or even one of the outfielders that we haven't talked about yet, like Adam Eaton leading off. You just never know what to expect, I guess, with a team facing a guy for the first time. And this kid does have very good minor league stats this year. I did see that this morning, a little blurb written up on him. But his career, it's interesting. He's been a journeyman for a while. So we'll see how he does. I mean, he certainly can't do any worse than any of the other guys the Twins have been throwing out there, outside of Phil Hughes, who's been amazing. But guys like Ricky Nolasco, and let's see, who else have they been? Kevin Correa, guys they've been throwing out there to get shelled. So certainly you can't do any worse than that. Why not give the kid a chance?
Yeah, and you get a team like the White Sox that lead the league in strikeouts. So I think he has opportunity, and like you mentioned, 3K on FanDuel. If the weather looks like, if the game gets delayed and I see that it's delayed, then I'll probably throw him in a couple tournaments because I think they're going to get the game in. So it looks like, I don't know, it's just one of those things where you want to take a chance sometimes, and at 3K, you can definitely get some batters in. So.
Yeah, and see some people in chat also asking about the potential weather concern in St. Louis. I think it might be a little bit of a worry if you're on a guy like Shelby Miller tonight. I wouldn't worry at all about that game getting in. There's kind of pop-up showers and storms all over the place. but they move through pretty quickly. So I would expect them to get the game in. Now, will there be a 45-minute or an hour delay at some point? I think it's possible. So it would worry me a little bit if I'm on Shelby Miller, but otherwise I think the Bats are safe from that game. So with that, let's move to outfield. Then we could take some questions, maybe go through a pick five or something, and wrap the show up. So who do you like in at outfield tonight?
Yeah, I think we've already mentioned that you can play Brandon Moss in the outfield, but Joey Baptista, and I call him Joey Bats just because the guy is just one of my favorite players to watch play baseball. And I think he has a very plus matchup tonight, facing Phelps and Phelps reverse splits. Baptista hits righties just as well as he hits lefties, has a major home run upside tonight, and I don't mind his price. It's at 5,300 and it's kind of up there, but with some of these options tonight, you can definitely fit him in, and I didn't have an issue fitting him in any of my DraftKings lineups tonight. But if you're going to be looking at somebody a little cheaper, you've already mentioned Adam Eaton, batting leadoff. I think he's in a good spot tonight. Matt Holliday, we've mentioned the St. Louis righties. I think Holliday and Craig, if you want to, roll out those St. Louis righties. And going down a little cheaper, you can look for guys, Jason Worth and Marlon Byrd, I think, both have good matchups tonight. And, if you really, really want to go far down, I'm going down now. So, Johnny Gomes at 3,200, if you want to be contrarian in a GPP, he absolutely crushes left-handed pitching, has a tough matchup tonight, but he's not going to be highly owned, and he's always in a spot to hit a home run against a lefty.
Yeah, I don't think he's that bad of a play tonight, to be honest, even against Kazmir. Somebody was mentioning that the Red Sox lineup came out, and I believe, let's see, David Ortiz is getting the night off tonight, so an upgrade to Kazmir. Doesn't surprise me that they're giving him the night off with the lefty on the mound. So Napoli's batting cleanup. Pierzynski fifth against the lefty, which is a little odd. They've been batting him seventh or eighth against righties lately. So this Pierzynski in the 5 spot seems strange. He's DHing tonight. Then Gomes in the 6 hole. So I think the lineup does set up well, especially towards the bottom half, for Kazmir to have a good game. Because the Red Sox do still have some lefties in there with Jackie Bradley, Pierzynski, Stephen Drew. So, again, if you can get through those guys at the top, the lefty killers, and Holt is a lefty as well, but Pedroia and Bogarts would be the guys that would scare me the most if I was on Kazmir. And I don't mind Gomes as a GPP play. He'd probably be the only other Red Sox bat that I look at. A lot of people in the chat asking about Melky Cabrera. What are your thoughts on him, given the fact that Hughes does tend to have reverse splits? Maybe a little bit of a downgrade for the Toronto lefties, which Cabrera will be hitting from the left side. So are you on him at all, or just Bautista in the outfield for Toronto?
Yeah, I'm not on Melky tonight. We mentioned Phelps and his reverse splits. He has a 275 weighted on base against righties this season. That kind of scares me off of Melky. The only lefty that I really like for Toronto tonight is Juan Francisco, just because of his home run upside. Melky definitely hits home runs, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to be on him as much tonight. His price is, I think, over 4,000. I think there's better options at DraftKings tonight. And if you find him, a little cheap, maybe across the industry somewhere, I would maybe plug him in. But not liking his price and the matchup for him tonight.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'd stick with the other Toronto bats. I mean, I think Encarnacion and Bautista are in the best spots of the bunch. If you want to roster some Toronto bats tonight, and certainly a lot of people will be on Jose Reyes as well. I'm just trying to look at the bottom. We mentioned Stephen Vogt earlier. If you're on JSO and you also want a punt option in the outfield, you can put Vogt in the outfield. 3 catcher-eligible players for Oakland in the lineup tonight. You very rarely see that, with JSO DHing, Norris catching, and then Vogt playing the outfield, but also catcher-eligible on DraftKings. Again, if you want value with those White Sox bats, I already mentioned Adam Eaton. I think Dayan Viciedo could be a decent play tonight. Desmond Jennings is leading off for Tampa Bay. If you're not on Colin McHugh, I think he makes the best spot of any of the Tampa Bay bats. Not that I'm overly excited about him. For the Yankees, if you're not on Hutchison, I think Ellsbury's been one of the Yankees' hottest hitters of late. I think he could be in play, along with Carlos Beltran as a price-based play. But again, these aren't guys that I'm totally in love with. I can take them or leave them. Most of them are tournament options. Certainly, we talked about the Oakland Bats throughout the show. I think Cespedes could be a decent option, but he is pricey on DraftKings. And then on FanDuel, you get a little bit better value for the Cardinals guys, like Matt Holliday, who's 4,700 on DraftKings and pretty price prohibitive over there. He's only 3,400 on FanDuel, and Alan Craig is only 2,900 on FanDuel. So you get a really good price point on some of these right-handed Cardinal bats against Buchanan on FanDuel tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Cards bats. We've mentioned it a few times. Just so you guys know, I think one of my favorite options for GPP outfielders today is George Springer. I already mentioned that I'm not big on Archer tonight, and he's really struggled against righties this season. So I think Springer is one of my favorite options for tournaments tonight, and I don't think he's going to be highly owned with Archer pitching at home. The stats definitely support Archer in that matchup, but definitely going to be using Springer quite a bit in my tournaments tonight.
Let's see what else we got for people in the chat. Which Nationals bat would you prefer? This would probably be at a flex spot on a site like Draft Street. Worth or Desmond? Those are two guys that we didn't really talk a whole lot about.
I would probably go Worth with the upside. Desmond definitely hits home runs as well, but I think Worth is probably the safer play with a little bit more upside as well.
Thoughts on Coco Crisp, one of the lone A's that we didn't mention?
Coco Crisp, yeah, he's batting leadoff, I'm sure. Yeah. And if he's in the lineup, that means he's healthy enough to play. You can load up on all the lefties tonight for Oakland against PV.
Yeah, I think you're going to see those be very popular plays tonight. Guys like Crisp, Jaso, we've mentioned a lot of basically their whole lineup throughout the show. Brandon Moss, another guy that hits from the left side. I think all of them are in a decent spot tonight. Now the question is, in a tournament, do you want to play the fade and maybe go with something else? I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be on those Oakland bats. But for cash games, I mean, certainly, I think it's not the contrarian, not maybe the best contrarian play out there tonight because they're in such a good spot. So, any merit in your mind to fading the Oakland bats in a GPP?
Yeah, I usually would play the fade, but I just think they're in too good of a spot tonight to fade them. They're all swinging the bat pretty well, and PV. Hold on, it's right here. PV has given up 9 home runs already to lefties this season. Has over 340 weighted on base to lefties and righties. There's just no way I'm going to be fading Oakland tonight.
Yeah, somebody asking in the chat about John Jay. John Jay, not a guy I'm on tonight. We mentioned Buchanan. Is worse against actually right-handed batters. And even though Jay is batting second, he gives you virtually no upside. He's not a home run hitter. He actually didn't have a starting job at the beginning of the year, but Peter Borges has been so bad that they've kind of made him the de facto center fielder again. I'm not on John Jay at all. So with that, let's go to, I pulled up the draft day rapid fire. I know a lot of times the people in the chat like to go through these pick 5 rapid fire type games. So let's do that now. We'll see if we can peg these right for the viewers this afternoon. So the first one in the draft day pick 5, rapid fire, is Jose Bautista against Matt Holliday. Two guys that I like tonight, but definitely have to give Jose Bautista the edge there.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bautista. I usually like going a little bit safer, but there's no way I'm going to not take Bautista in that matchup tonight.
Yeah. Second one, a guy that we've mentioned throughout the show, Brian Dozier. We know his upside and home run pop against left-handed pitching. Dozier and Jacoby Ellsbury.
I'm going to go with a safer pick, and I'm going to go Ellsbury, even though I like Hutchinson. I still think he's a little bit safer than Dozier tonight.
Yeah, I would agree. In that format, I like him a lot better. So if I was going for upside in a GPP, that'd be a different story. Could probably take Dozier there, but for this format, I'll take Ellsbury for sure. Next one, I think I know where you're going on this. The guy you just mentioned, George Springer, or David Wright going up against Haney, the rookie for the Marlins.
Yeah, you got it, Springer. I think Haney is going to have a good game tonight, and even though Wright does hit lefties a little bit better, I'm still going to be going with Haney in that one.
Yeah, and Wright, not a guy that's shown a ton of pop this season at all. Really seems like a lot of his power has been sapped a little bit, and that concerns me with him. He's still hitting for a decent average, and he's picked it up a little bit of late, but it's not like he's a 30 home run guy or anything like that. And the way Springer's been hitting this year, yeah, his average really isn't there, but I like him to have a decent game against Archer tonight. I'm kind of with you there. So next one is two guys we didn't really talk about at all, and two guys in fairly tough matchups. So we've got Jason Hayward, who will be going up against Jordan Zimmerman and the Nats, or we have Ben Zobrist going up against Colin McHugh.
Who was the first one? I'm sorry.
Jason Hayward. Jason Hayward against Jordan Zimmerman, or Ben Zobrist against McHugh.
Yeah, I don't like Zobrist tonight, so I'm gonna lead Hayward in that one. Hayward got dropped down in the order. Is he back up in the top of the order? Do you know?
I think so. I saw their lineup earlier.
Well, he's still
no,
batting.
Stella's leading up. Hayward's batting fifth.
Yeah, I'm still gonna go Hayward. I'm gonna give Hayward a little bit more of a nudge in that one, just because I think he's gonna be a little bit safer.
And the last one, we're going to force you to take a Ray against Colin McHugh. So it's James Loney or Matt Joyce.
That's tough. Probably 9 out of 10 times I would say Loney, as I think he's a safer cash game guy because he doesn't really strike out. But give me Joyce tonight over Loney.
Yeah, I think I would too. That's a pretty strange one. I might just be in there to muck you up. I don't know. That's one of the toughest ones. This is a fairly tough set. I'll take Joyce as well. I think over the course of the year he's going to prove out to be the better play more times than not over his teammate Loney. So that's where we're going there. We're going Jose Bautista, Jacoby Ellsbury, George Springer, Jason Hayward, Matt Joyce as the draft day rapid fire. So let me check and see if we've got anything else coming up for questions. Casimir, people like him a little bit better with Ortiz being out. I think that's fair. From that same game, do you like Bogarts better than Jed Lowry tonight, or how would you rate that? I mean, Lowry's cheaper on most sites.
If I'm going in tournaments, I'm going to play on Bogarts because I don't think he's going to be highly owned against Casimir tonight. But cash games, I'm going to go. I think Lowry has a better floor, so that's how I'm going to take that one. I don't know if they told us if it's going to be cash or GPP, but that's what I'm going to do.
Some people asking about Jake Marisnick batting second for the Marlins tonight. He's a young kid that they called up at varying points last season, and they've called him up again this year. So he's batting second in their lineup tonight. That's definitely a good spot to be in. Really, anybody that's in there ahead of Giancarlo Stanton probably going to get some pitches to hit. He's 2,600 on DraftKings. I think he's a solid value play if you want to go that route and you're not on Zach Wheeler tonight. He does tend to strike out some, and Wheeler has strikeout potential. But I don't think you get too many value plays on DraftKings for 2,600 or less tonight. So if you want to go cheap with one of your outfield spots, I think Marisnick could be a decent option. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have him pretty much across the board in all my Star Street games because he's minimum price. And at 2,600, he's definitely cheap enough where I can use him and not have an issue with it. You get a guy batting second that is 4 for 10 since being called up. He's not been too bad. Like you said, he has strikeout potential, but that doesn't kill you on DraftKings. But he's scored points every game. He's gotten a hit in every game he's played in. So, yeah, I don't mind that at all, especially at his price.
In a GPP, do you like Springer more than Stanton, or do you still like Stanton as a safer play there?
Tonight I'd probably go Springer. I know Stanton was banged up. He must be playing. He must be okay if he's going to be in the lineup and playing. But I'm going to go Springer. 98% of the time I would go Stanton in that one. And Wheeler definitely has potential to give up home runs. I just probably would take Springer just because of, Stanton's wrist.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially on DraftKings tonight, where Stanton's 5,500 and Springer's available either at 48 or 46. He's quite a bit cheaper. So on FanDuel, I think they're the exact same price, and that gets a little bit interesting to me, especially for a GPP. With the upside that Stanton has to hit multiple homers, and he's been hot of late. But with his bum wrist, that worries me a tad about taking him. I probably played a little bit safer and go with Springer tonight. And not to sell him short, he certainly has the upside as well. So I'm with you. I think 95% of the time Stanton's the play there, but tonight the circumstances might dictate otherwise. Let's check and see if we got any more questions. Do you like Crisp being the lefty over Cespedes?
No, Cespedes hits righties and lefties just about the same, and I think he has a lot more upside in that matchup. Chris is dealing with that. I think he had a hamstring issue, and he could get pulled out, in the 6th or 7th inning if they're up, which I do think they're going to be tonight. So I think tonight I'm going to give just a slight edge to Cespedes in that one. Oh.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's kind of how I do it too. Emmy Davis 6 saying it's a difficult night because we can't stack the Red Hot Royals. That's sad but true. I think the Royals are at 10 in a row right now, just firing in all cylinders, which I never thought I'd say about the Royals offense. So good for them. How about? Let's see. I know you're on McHugh, so you're probably not on Kevin Kiermaier hitting third for the Rays tonight. If I'm going cheap at outfield, I think I'd rather stick with Marisnik than Kiermaier tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I've been on him quite a bit lately, and I do think he's a pretty good hitter, and kind of optimistic on what he's going to do over the rest of the year. But tonight I'm going to be right there with you.
Yeah, Daddy Biggs wanting to know if Haney can go past 6 innings. I think that's kind of the big question that we raised at the start of the show. How much do they push him? If he goes 6 innings and gives up 1 run, do they just kind of call it a night with him? And I think that's the most interesting thing if you're thinking about rostering Andrew Haney tonight. Certainly the upside is there, but how far do they let him go? How much do they push him? If they only let him go 5 or 6 innings, obviously your upside is limited. But for the price, I still think he could be worth it, especially if the Marlins can manage a few runs off Zach Wheeler and help him get a win. I think if I'm going cheap at pitcher, I'm willing to take the risk on him.
Yeah, for his price, definitely. And like I said, it's his first start. And the one thing that they're going to want to do with him tonight, they're going to want to build confidence in him. So if he goes out there and he's up and it's the 5th or 6th inning and he's at 80 to 85 pitches, don't expect him to come out the next inning. Let him have a good start is their game plan tonight. And I still, for his price, I'm definitely going to be rostering him.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers most of the questions we had in the chat tonight. We're right up against 6:30 here, so we will get off the air to finish setting some lineups for tonight and let you guys finish setting yours. So good luck in everything. Hopefully, if you put a question out there, I tried to scroll through and catch all of them. I was doing it on my cell phone because it's impossible to scroll through the chat and do it in a timely manner. When we're running the Google Hangouts, it just definitely slows the rest of your PC down. So hopefully I caught most of the questions. I think I did. Good luck out there tonight, everybody. And Stevie, I'll let you sign us off for the night.
All right, yeah, good luck tonight, guys. And Cards, good luck buying the new house, man. Hope everything with the move goes well. And definitely wish you the best in all that because that's one of my least favorite things to do.
Yeah, so. It's, we got the agreement in place a couple of months ago, but the sellers needed some time to get a new place. So, we finally got the go-ahead on that. We're going to close next month in July. So we're putting our house on the market. We're cleaning it out. We're having a big garage sale this weekend. So a lot going on. I know I posted in the forums earlier today. I'm going to take a little break, cut back a little bit. I'll still be around playing, but I'm going to cut back my volume here for the next month or so with everything we got going on and the kids and the move. And it's just an exciting time. I mean, the house that we're in now is a starter home, and with 2 kids, we've kind of outgrown it. So we're moving about 15 miles north, not too far, but with 2 kids, we've accumulated a lot of crap, and we've got a lot of stuff to move. So appreciate the well wishes on that front, and it'll be a busy month in the household, and it'll hopefully go by fast, and then football season will be here. So appreciate that, and with that, we'll sign off for the night. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a good one.